The Cincinnati Reds believe they have the right hitting recipe, but there is one key ingredient that they are missing.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every single day, and my name is Jeff Carr. I'm a lifelong Cincinnati Reds fan, and I've been podcasting about this team for now my 7th season. And I'm glad that you're alongside me here today, because on today's show, Terry Francona had a very surprising response to what I thought was a very normal question. And I've got two polar opposite thoughts about it. Tell you what that is later on in today's show. The Reds have a tough roster decision looming, and I'll tell you why in just a few minutes. But there is a flaw in the Reds' plan to score runs, one that you, me, and everyone else saw coming from miles away. That's where we will begin on today's show, that is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, the Cincinnati Reds have been super inconsistent when it comes to scoring runs. Their run differential is now at plus 29, which isn't that bad when you consider all things and when you look at who's around them, where they are currently in the race, 5 games out of the wild card, 9 games out of the division. But there's a couple of key things here to consider. The Reds beat the Orioles by over 20 runs. The Reds beat the Rangers by over 10 runs. The Reds beat the Rockies by close to 20 runs as well. You take those 3 games out of it, 3 out of 60, and the Reds have a negative run differential. 3 games are propping up their entire run differential. So as much as we might hear that narrative in days coming, when we're talking about the trade deadline and when questions are being asked of the front office and they tell us about run differential, consider that there are 3 games that are propping that up. The rest of the season has just been wildly inconsistent. However, there's some key numbers here that are pointing to the fact that the recipe for success that the Reds believe they have when it comes to scoring runs is missing one key ingredient. And now you're probably saying, Jeff, it feels like they're missing a ton of key ingredients because they're just bad when it comes to hitting the ball. Actually, they're league average when it comes to a lot of different things. The league average for batting average for a team is 244. That's exactly what the Reds' batting average is. The league average on base percentage is 316. The Reds is 318. And the league average team slugging percentage is 395. The Reds is 392. So it's right there. So those numbers are actually saying that the Reds aren't bad. They aren't good. They're average when it comes to hitting. The thing that they're missing is power. Because even when you look deeper, the Reds' batting average on balls in play is actually right there at league average at 301. It's actually maybe just a couple of points higher than league average. And then their weighted on base average, the WOBA. We've talked about the WOBA before. It's kind of an all-inclusive number that talks about performance and really kind of focuses in on what a hitter does best. The Reds are league average at that too. But the reason that power is the thing that the Reds are missing is a couple of analytical stats, and bear with me, I will explain their importance. Because they are second to last in barrels per plate appearance. They are second to last in average swing speed, and they're bottom 5 in hard hit rate, which, ironically enough, bottom 5 is actually an improvement from last year where they were bottom 2. They've seen an uptick in that, which is hilarious because they're still very low compared to the rest of the league. But in the offseason, and I was trying to look for the exact quote and I couldn't find it, but I remember that Nick Krall was addressing questions about should the Reds go get, a middle of the order guy, an outfielder with some power, things that we were begging them to go get. Nick Krall said that they wanted to be a line drive team. They didn't necessarily want power. Not necessarily that they were shunning it altogether, but when they were looking for hitters, that's not one of the things that they were keen on, which we thought at the time was a big miss, and it seems like even now it's a bigger miss because everything about what the Reds do is about stringing hits together. And that's all well and good, but when you don't string hits together, you don't score. And the Reds have really had a hard time consistently doing that. We've seen those stretches of 5 or 6 games where they score 6 or more runs, and you're like, okay, the offense is working now. And then they go on stretches like they have been for the last 3 where it's 0-3-2. Coincidentally, they've lost all 3 of those games. But with this all being said, like, the only way that the Reds score is if they put together rallies. They don't have that ability to score runs on one swing of the bat. They're currently below league average when it comes to team home runs. The leaders being the Dodgers and the Yankees, who just wildly outspend the Reds every single year. I'm not saying that the Reds need to spend that much money, but they have 30 more home runs than the Reds do as a team, either one of them, Dodgers or Yankees. Then the team that's third in Major League Baseball in home runs, the Los Angeles Angels. They've got 87. Now, granted, they had a home run barrage at Fenway on Monday night, so that was a little bit miscued, but still, they've been hitting a lot of home runs this year. That's a team that's in a similar situation as the Reds. They just don't pitch very well. So you've got a difference here where the Reds don't have power, and they're under 500. The Angels don't have pitching. They're under 500. You put them all together, the Reds are missing this one thing. They need power. Can they go get that at the deadline? Maybe. But they had a lot of opportunities to get it during the offseason, and they shunned those opportunities. It's something that has been very interesting to me to see, because I think the Reds are betting on Christian Encarnacion-Strand to be the power, to be the guy in the middle of the lineup. And we'll talk about him in just a minute when it comes to his rehab, while he is at least working his way back to the major leagues, who is Christian Encarnacion-Strand? Because I don't have an answer for you. The scouting report says that he's super talented. He has lots of power, can hit the ball a country mile. His availability has never been there. He's either been hurt or he's been working his way back from being hurt. There's never been a point where we can say he has been 100% healthy and this is who he is. Because he had that for a minute whenever he debuted back in 2023, but that was such a small sample size that I don't know I can trust that. And everything else has been such small sample sizes with so many caveats laid upon them that I don't know who Christian Encarnacion-Strand is. And I find it hard to bet on him, but the Reds are. And then Jeimer Candelario seems like another guy that they were hoping that would provide power for this lineup, but he's never been that guy. He's always been an okay power guy, but he's never been a power guy. Change the game with one swing of the bat on a consistent basis. That's not who Jeimer Candelario is. So they don't really have that guy in system unless CES develops into it. And Will Benson, while we have seen flashes of that, they've been few and far between, and they're only against right-handers. The Reds don't have power against left-handed pitching. All season, right now, we've discussed the struggles of the Reds against lefties. But all season, in over 500 team at-bats against left-handed pitching, they have 11 home runs. That's telling me that they don't have power against lefties. So you need that guy. Hopefully the Reds can go get him, because without him, this lineup will always be what it currently is, streaky. Because they will go on streaks where they can string hits together and they can build rallies. But when they aren't doing that, we see what happens. They don't score. They need the power. The Reds also have another need, because they need to make a tough roster decision soon, and I'll tell you what that is coming up next. Get the supplies you need from the site that's made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical, you can get exactly what you're looking for with just a few clicks over at supplyhouse.com. They've got over 200,000 parts available for you to choose from. They've got over 400 top brands that provide them, and they've got real people to talk to every time so that you know you're getting exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. They ship from coast to coast, and it's very easily delivered. Plus, they have this Trade Master program that if you sign up for it, you can get a dedicated phone line and free shipping on every order. Supply House makes it so much easier for you to get your job done. Check out supplyhouse.com, and you can use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. Plus, join that Trademaster program today and see how easy it can be to get the right parts with supplyhouse.com. Always appreciate you making Locked On Reds part of your everyday routine, and shout out to our everydayers out there. If you're not an everydayer, you can become one by hitting that subscribe button right here on YouTube or on your favorite podcasting app. Audio-wise, we're seriously on all of those out there. That way you don't miss anything we've got coming for you, whether it's our daily show kind of covering the trends and how everything's going for the Reds and what they're going to do next, and Tim Daniel with the Reds postcast on what just happened in the game that night, going live at the end of every final game when it comes to that. Plus, you won't miss what we've got tomorrow. Steve will be back. He's had a little bit of a work conflict today, so it's just me solo. But I'm going to ask him a question as it pertains to Terry Francona and Nick Krall. That's going to be on the next Locked On Reds podcast. And we'll talk a little bit more in Terry Francona in just a minute. But Nick Krall has an interesting decision to make, and I'm sure Terry Francona is part of this as well. But CES, Jeimer Candelario, and Austin Hayes are all on their way back and look to be ready reasonably soon. I don't know that it's like in the next day or two, but all three of these guys look close. And when it comes to who's going to be ushered off the roster, I think two decisions seem pretty obvious. One of them is a tough one that the Reds need to make. Firstly, kind of looking at where these guys are in their rehab, CES is looking good in AAA. He's got a really nice average right now. He's hitting the ball hard. He's getting a lot of extra base hits. The things that we want him to do when he gets to the major league level, I'm not ready to count on that just yet, but I'm happy to see it, and I hope that it continues. Austin Hayes is reportedly, getting closer. Things are feeling good for him, and hopefully it'll be, maybe this week. I haven't seen a specific timeline on it. There is a possibility that he needs a game or two in Louisville. So then that will push that back slightly, but I don't think it'll push it back a ton. And then you got Jeimer Candelario. He just began his rehab stint in Goodyear. His first game back, he went 1 for 2 with a double, which people are loving. The thing that I'm worried about, though, is he committed an error while playing in the field in the complex league. The Reds are going to need him to play in the field. The Reds really need him to play third base. And that's a bummer because he's a bit of an Easter Island head out at third base. I've said that before. But they need his bat in the lineup over Santiago Espinal's. Dear Lord, the Reds really need that soon. But, yeah, anyway, hopefully he can turn things around because we all know how bad his season has been before he got injured. So, obviously, the two of these three moves should be Garrett Hampson and Connor Joe. They should be DFA'd. I don't understand. Like, Connor Joe has a history of hitting left-handed pitching, but he's not doing that this year. So if he's not doing that, what is he doing here? And Garrett Hampson can't hit the broadside of a barn. The only thing you can hope that he can do is draw a walk whenever he comes up to bat. I don't know why he's here. So those two dudes need to be DFA'd. And then I think the third one's kind of difficult. And as Dusty Baker would love to say, these things tend to work themselves out. But say it doesn't. Say all three of these guys are ready to come back this week and nobody else really has an injury or nothing else like that happens. I think they've really got to consider sending down Matt McLain. We're talking a little bit about Terry Francona's reaction to being questioned about this here in just a few minutes, but consider this for a minute. The Reds are down by 1, 2 outs, bottom of the 9th inning, and Garrett Hampson comes to the plate. Matt McLain's on the bench. Now, Matt McLain had an off day. Understand that. That's fine. But are we really thinking that if the Reds need one swing of the bat, Garrett Hampson's a better option than Matt McLain? If that's the case, what's he doing here? If that's the case, he should go down to Louisville and get that confidence back. Steve has constantly maintained you don't send Matt McLain down unless you think you have a better option. But if Matt McLain is not a better option than Garrett Hampson, he should go down to Louisville. So whenever one of these guys are ready, if you've got to the point where you've made 2 moves, you've gotten rid of Hampson and Joe, and then you need to make a third move, Matt McLain's got to be that third move. But the Reds definitely have a tough decision to make where he's concerned, because as we've discussed, like, you could platoon him and maybe limit his opportunities against bad matchups or something like that. But right now it just seems like Matt McLain looks lost at the plate. He still has somewhat decent contact, although it's pretty much league average at this point when it comes to exit velocity, average exit velocity. His barrels are fine, slightly above league average. And his hard hit rate is above league average as well. But the batting average on balls in play isn't a super stark difference from where league average is. Like, it's a little bit lower, but it's not low enough to think that his 175 average is magically going to jump up by 100 points. There's got to be a breakout coming, but quite frankly, there are no numbers pointing to that. He still strikes out a ton, and he's making a lot of outs at the plate. And his defense isn't necessarily outweighing the lack of offense. So I think there's got to be a hard decision made when it comes to Matt McLain, because you are hoping, and this is what the Reds are hoping, as much as you and I might be worried about it, the Reds are hoping that the returns of CES Candelario and Austin Hayes can transform this lineup. And if you really want to transform this lineup, you've got to look long and hard at how Matt McLain has negatively affected it, because he has. We all expected Matt McLain being healthy to be the difference in this ball club. And the only difference that it has been negative. So the Reds need to kind of figure that out. They've got to... I strongly believe that all he really needs to do is go down to AAA for like the minimum of 10 days, maybe 2 weeks. Just see the ball hit the grass and remember, I'm good at this. Because there's so much about baseball that is mental. And right now, Matt McLain has been just beaten over the head with strikeouts and outs and line drives that have found gloves. I don't know that constantly running him out there at the major league level to see if those things will start to turn around for him is good for him or good for the team at this point. So maybe put me into the category of, I think that they should send down Matt McLain. And I think that that decision is coming soon, because the Reds definitely have these 3 guys that are ready to return. But it'll be interesting to see what Nick Krall does on this, because there's been a lot of moves here recently that make me wonder about their roster strategy. I mean, obviously the addition of Garrett Hampson is a big red flag when it comes to the roster composition, but also they just added Joe La Sorsa to the 40-man roster. They traded Alexis Diaz for a rookie-level pitcher that was not on the Dodgers 40-man roster, so they opened up their own 40-man roster spot. Joe La Sorsa was a guy that we talked about in spring training as somebody who was raising some eyebrows at camp because of some certain things that he was doing, and he's been really good in Louisville at limiting left-handed hitters from doing some good things there. Like, he's done a good job of getting left-handed hitters out in Louisville. The thing that he's not done is limit the walks, because he has exactly the same amount of strikeouts as he does walks, 14 of each. I'm just not interested in that. The Reds already have plenty of problems in the bullpen with walking people. So these roster decisions, while they can seem obvious, I'm continually surprised at the weirdness with which the Reds are approaching them. Hopefully, they start to make some decisions that make sense here soon. But let's change gears here, because there is a clip that is going around of Terry Francona, and I got 2 thoughts that are polar opposites about it. There are a lot of things in life I know about, like batting average and on-base percentage, slugging percentage, and ERA. Okay, those are mostly baseball statistics. And that's why when it comes to finances, I need help. And Monarch Money is a great help to me because it puts all of my accounts in one place. I've got my debit account, I got my credit account, I got my investment accounts, of which there is like at least one of them. But they're all in one place, and I just need one password to see it all on one screen. I'm not just financially surviving anymore. I'm financially thriving. Plus, they can help you track your spending so that you know that you spent too much on Taco Bell last month. And I'm working on it. But Monarch Money is making it easier for me to work on it. Check out Monarch Money today. Go to monarchmoney.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB to save 50% off your first year. Start financially winning with Monarch Money. That's monarchmoney.com and the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. If you can't watch us on YouTube, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcast app. We're seriously on all of them out there. Also, make sure you check out Locked On MLB Game Night over on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel or on the Locked On MLB audio channel. They watch every game every night so that you don't have to. All right, there's a clip of Terry Francona that's going around, and a lot of folks, I've seen a lot of friends and people that are sharing this and very confused by it because, quite frankly, Terry Francona had a very confusing answer to what seemed like a pretty reasonable question. And it was Charlie Goldsmith, friend of the podcast, who asked it. And normally whenever I clip things that Terry Francona or Nick Kroll or, any number of players have in a post-game press conference, I like to just clip their answers and then I repeat the questions that were asked by the reporters. But in this particular clip that I've made here, I wanted to include what Charlie said and the tone that he said it and how he said it and all this other stuff, just so that you can see that I believe this is a pretty normal question. In fact, I think that Charlie Goldsmith was kind of leading Terry Francona to an answer. And Terry Francona completely turned that down. Because I didn't think, I thought the response he got was very strange. So I tried to enhance the sound on Charlie as much as I can. Bear with me on this. The sound level is a little bit different than what you're hearing right now. So you might need to adjust your volume quickly for it and then quickly for when we come back to it. But here is what Terry Francona said to Charlie Goldsmith's question.
Do you want to get McLain the whole day today? Maybe he was available to run, but how do you eventually?
He was going to pinch run in the ninth. What do you want him to do?
You pitched him last week against Kansas City, for example.
Okay.
I don't understand. Okay, so I've got two thoughts on this because, number one, I want my manager to have absolute confidence in every decision that he makes. And it's clear, Terry Francona's made a career out of that. That's not in question. But the way that the Reds have played this year is eerily similar to the way that the Reds played last year. And I think it's fair to ask some questions. And make no mistake, I don't think Charlie was asking some sort of gotcha question. In fact, in case you didn't hear it, I'll kind of repeat a little bit of what Charlie said because Charlie asked about Matt McLain, about the fact that in the ninth inning with Garrett Hampson coming up and there were 2 outs and you're 1 swing away from tying the ball game, that he didn't bring Matt McLain in to pinch it for Garrett Hampson. And the way that Charlie asked it, he was basically so it was just an off day for Matt McLain, right? Maybe he was going to pinch run in the ninth, but it seemed like it was just an off day for him. You were trying to get him some rest. You were trying to give him a complete mental break for a day. And Terry Francona was like, well, yeah, he's going to pinch run in the ninth. Well, what'd you want him to do? That seems like a very adversarial answer. I don't know. I feel like that was a strange response. And it's possible that Terry Francona is super frustrated with what's going on. Obviously, he's far more affected by the outcomes of the Cincinnati Reds than you or I are, as much as we emotionally get attached. And I want the Reds to win. I want them to win. But Terry Francona needs them to win. It's his job to get them to win. So obviously he's frustrated. But the question was pretty obvious, because if Matt McLain is not available, that's one thing. But if Matt McLain was available and you didn't call on him, there are so many more questions I have. Number one, why is he here? And then there was a follow-up too, and I saw some people asking this, and it's a fair question to ask. Why not Austin Wynns in that case? Garrett Hampson is right-handed. So, obviously, these other guys are right-handed too, so you're not like changing the matchups here, but at the same time, it just seemed as though these guys were just on the bench and they weren't as good as Garrett Hampson. But there is literally no metric. There is no number. There's no statistic that points to Garrett Hampson being the better option than either Matt McLain or Austin Wynns, and I include the slump that Matt McLain is in. And there are other aspects of this team right now that garner so many questions that it seems unfair for anyone involved with the Reds to seem indignant whenever these questions are asked of them. And that's kind of the vibe I got. Maybe I'm being too hard on Terry Francona. Maybe there's less to this than I'm prescribing, but I don't think so. It's got me thinking a lot of questions, and I really want to discuss those with Steve on tomorrow's podcast. So I definitely want you to check out that one as well whenever Steve is back, because I think there are some questions to ask of this. But at the same time, I just don't know. Like, how is that the easy response that Charlie was honestly leading Terry Francona to with his question was, yes, we wanted a complete and total mental break for Matt McLain today. He was not available. And you know what? That answer would have been fine. But the way that he answered it instead was very odd. And something to keep an eye on, I think, moving forward. Because Terry Francona was hired, and immediately we were all 1,000% bought in. We had multiple shows during the offseason talking about just the overwhelming impact that Terry Francona was going to have on this team. And while I'm not ready to say that we were wrong about that, I'm also not ready to celebrate any victories on those predictions. It's clear that the honeymoon is over. Much shorter than I thought it would be. I don't know. Like this clip and the way that the team is played, it's you know, when you watch the team as much as I do, and when you think about this team as much as I do, it's difficult, man. Like my mentality about the Reds has never been this negative. You guys know me. I mean, everydayers know who I am and my feelings about the Cincinnati Reds. And I have just felt weighed down by this Reds team. They've really missed expectations for me, and I wonder what this means for them going forward. I'm trying to seek the fun in the Reds right now, and there's obviously, when you have a guy like Elly Cruz on your team, there's plenty of fun to be had, but even he's going through a lot of stuff right now. Like I'm super impressed with everything that he's given to the Reds, and I've saw that, you know, we're going to discuss this a lot tomorrow as well, that after Wednesday's game, he's going to go on the bereavement list for the weekend and things like that. And this team is going to miss him for this weekend series against the Diamondbacks. But he's got so much going on with him. I don't know what happened to the team we saw in 2023. And largely the roster is pretty much the same. Did Joey Votto leaving have that much of an impact? Inquiring minds are wondering. it's a heck of a way to really, on that bombshell, it's time to end. That's a heck of a bombshell to really end the show on. But I don't know. What are you feeling? Like, put it down in the comments section. I'm very curious because you may have noticed I've just not been as positive about this team as I have been in years past. And I'm curious if you're feeling the same way. But that'll do it for this edition of the Locked On Reds podcast. Thank you so much for checking us out. Make sure that you subscribe. That way you become an everydayer. And you make sure you should check out Tim Daniel on the Reds postcast after every game this year. And like I said, coming up on tomorrow's Locked On Reds podcast, I have a question that I want to discuss with Steve that pertains to Terry Francona and Nick Krall. You won't want to miss that. Now for your next listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night over on the Locked On MLB channel. Watch every game every night so that you don't have to. But you always know that we will be Locked On Reds every single day.